This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
All right, dare I even bring it up? Because if you want to see one Jon Hicks get on his soapbox so fast, all you got to do is bring up the subject matter about the soft generations that we are bringing up in America.
Oh, no. I'm going to spare everyone of that this weekend.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. Kevin O'Leary is not sparing.
I love Mr. Wonderful when it comes down to just giving tough love.
Yeah.
So many of his antics and styles are a little bit abrasive, but when he's talking about especially family members or people that he cares about, and he's like, tough love, I love that.
Okay.
I love that. So
here's a lesson that Mr. Wonderful was giving recently about tough love. You know Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. He's also, is he a billionaire or is he
I don't think he's a billionaire.
He's a millionaire.
But he's doing everything correctly to become one long before his days are over.
Well, he was recalling a conversation that he had with his teenage son. Apparently his son had just found out that his well-to-do friends had trust funds.
Oh. Tell me about my trust, Dad. I said, sure. Well, your trust pays for your education. And if I get run over with Mom tonight, you don't have to worry because this trust is going to let you finish high school. And he said, what happens after that? Well, your marks are so bad that you're not going to get into college here. So we'll be dead and you'll be broke. And he said, well, what do you mean? What about the trust? I said, the trust. It only pays while you're in school. And I said to him what my mother said to me years earlier. I said, the dead bird under the nest never learns how to fly. He said, what the hell does that mean, Dad? I said, it means no free lunch.
What the hell does that mean, Dad?
I love it.
I know. Did you see the little side note that I gave you in this story?
No.
His son, Trevor, is now pursuing a master's degree at Harvard. So
darn straight.
Just, fan the flame and you'll get that motivation going, John.
As he should. I think about this all the time. Yeah. So my two little girls, one of them's a sophomore in high school, the other one's in 5th grade. And we have these conversations all the time. It's like, Dad, blah, 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 blah. And they'll talk about money. I'm like, tell me what your real thoughts are about that. What do you really want to pursue? Because my whole thing is that I need you to major in something that you have some passion, but I need it to be business related. I'm not even going to lie, but you can minor in anything you want. Even if you pursue that other side, I don't care if it's general business, communications, marketing, finance, accounting, legal. I don't care, but I need you to do something because both of my girls, they're a product of their parents. I'm not a man of my hands. I like to work. I like the concept of woodwork. If you saw my woodworking, you think that would be a horrible hoax against someone, right? So if I were to try to make something, it would come out terrible. Even out of Play-Doh. I'm just not good at it. So I'm guessing that they're going to get something similar from that gene side of things. I can cook, but I would never charge money for that. People would have to pay me.
Okay.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
No, but my point on this is really simple. I need them to understand that the money that my wife and I create, those are things that if we are lucky enough to have some left over for them, if they don't know how to create their own money, they will blow it faster than anything. And it's really interesting. So Kevin O'Leary made a great point there because it comes down to inheritances all the time. I see this all the time.
Yeah.
So if you look at the average inheritance in the United States, it is completely exhausted within 5 years. 5 years. So think about this. And let me just paint this picture. Let's say that a family receives an inheritance. And I was just talking with one of my advisors and they had met with someone and this is exactly the same situation.
Okay.
So this family had saved about $100,000. Okay, great. Yeah. That's awesome. They were in their late 50s. But they had gotten a sizable inheritance of over $1 million.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the amazing thing is when they came in to talk about, hey, what should they do? When we started putting together the plan, they wanted to spend about 4 times more than that amount of money would allow them to spend. And why is that? Because again, it's not that it was a bad thing at all. They had saved $100,000, but that $1 million represented 10 times the amount that they had been able to save on their own.
Okay.
And they had a different idea of what it took to not only maintain and protect that money, but how much income it can sustain.
Okay.
They were just thinking, wow, I will have $1.1 million. Yeah. I got a big old bucket of money. I can go in there and grab cookies out of that cookie jar whenever I want. Ooh, this time I want chocolate chip. Next time I want rainbow sprinkles. Oh, the next time I want fudge rounds. Oh, that's right. And they keep grabbing from the cookie jar because they don't realize it's not going to get replenished again. It's very unfortunate that came from an inheritance, but there's only so many people that can pass away to give you more cookies for the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And in the situation, this was their only and last opportunity.
Okay.
So when we went through this, It made me have just a really internal conscious decision. This is why trusts exist.
Okay.
It's not to demonize anyone for not understanding that, but when we want to be a good steward of our finances, the question is, should we consider advanced trust planning? Now, that's what I'm going to talk about today on this one, because it has nothing to do with inheritances. It has nothing to do with giving a big old pile of money to someone or receiving a big old pile of money. What it has to do with is helping others help themselves by doing what? Removing or limiting the cookie jar from time to time, right? It's just one of those things. And I know, I mean, I am susceptible to gain a few pounds very quickly, unless if someone is not smacking my hand going into that cookie jar.
The cookie jar is locked.
It's no joke. It's no joke. So I eat late at night. I don't eat breakfast. It causes me to get hungry later. But if I let myself do that, I'd be 7,000 pounds. So the point is that sometimes trust planning is not to interfere or hurt your heirs. It's to help them. So two things that I want to talk about today, because I think that this is what Kevin O'Leary was talking about. He was basically, for his son, had a spendthrift provision in that. And let's talk about this for a minute, because I rarely talk about trust planning, but this is important.
Yeah.
Because this would have saved and helped that couple that recently one of my advisors met with. So the idea of having a trust is to help control that money and to help your family members even after you're gone. A standard will typically give them the money, and the day that they receive it, they can blow it all tomorrow, which is why the average inheritance is spent in less than 5 years. And here's another point to that, Heather, and something that I kind of didn't know. 1 in 3 people, 30+% will end up with more debt or less savings than they started with before the inheritance.
Really?
That's a big deal, because they keep grabbing from that cookie jar and they start grabbing into their own cookies.
But also it seems to me so obvious they have no understanding of how to manage the money in the first place. And that's the great tragedy.
Well, think about how hard it is to save the money in the first place. But whoever thought that holding on to it is actually harder than saving it in the first place. But that's what study after study after study prove. But if you actually decided, okay, and here's who this is good for. Anyone that is going to potentially leave $1 million or more to your heirs. Not that you go get a trust, but you probably need to talk to someone. In my office, this is why we have tax attorneys, we have regular estate planning attorneys, and we have CPAs in our office for these exact reasons, to help people just figure out, do you need to pay for a trust? Is that something you need? But especially in a situation, if you have a spendthrift kid or someone that you're just fearful, man, they're just going to blow all that money, or they may get a divorce. That money can go somewhere else out the door, right?
Yeah.
So the thing about a spendthrift trust is the trust releases money gradually for specific reasons. We heard Mr. Wonderful talk about for college tuition, and as long as he's in school until he reaches a certain age, like a first home or to start a business. Those are all good things that spendthrift provision can handle. Now, we in our trust, for my wife and I, we also have incentive triggers. So if our kids do really good things, like they get their first full-time job, they get into a good college, that will potentially give them an incentive trigger where they can release more money because they did something good, something that we deem as a really good thing for them to do, right? If they get married, it may help them with a down payment, not for a wedding cost. A wedding cost is a silly day, and don't get too much offended by that, but it is a silly day, not silly for the bride and groom. But I'm just saying, I watch people spend tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a day. And if that money had been applied for a down payment on a house or to knock off student debt, we wouldn't have the debt that we have in this country. And some people think, well, John, you're hard-hearted. I got 2 little girls, and they hear this from me every day. I will pay for a little bit of a wedding only because your mother and I want to see you guys, go down the aisle. But having said that, I will spend the majority of my money on a home or a proper asset for you to build your life, not build a day. Usually that has more drama than necessary. But the thing about those incentive triggers is they help make us all make good decisions, right? And here's the other thing about a trust. If you have a properly established trust, it also shields that inheritance from creditors, right? People knocking on the door say, hey, you owe us money. Divorces, which as much as I hate to say it, it's over 50% in America, guys.
Is it still, I know it's at least 50%, but it's
over. It's over. So it helps protect you from there and the temptation to borrow against future windfalls. So those types of things, again, it does not mean that you need a trust, but it is something. If you're a millionaire, and I know a lot of people say, well, I got $1 million, but that's not as much money as it used to be. No. The whole point is that's still a lot of money that if you have at the end of your retirement, you don't want your kids to all of a sudden go, man, now I'm a millionaire. Because the next thing you know, all of your hard work you would have been better off going down to Margaritaville and drink yourself away, because that's all they're going to do on your money. Yeah. So again, I'm not saying keep it away from your kids, but I'm saying encourage them to make good decisions. And sometimes a trust can do that.
So you want to be retired for a good, long, happy 20, 30, 40 years? It's going to cost you. And
it's so true. It's so true. It's like, of all the things that people cite that could be problems for retirement, the biggest one is longevity. Because the longer we live, the more that market crashes could happen. Tax rates could change. We have war, we have famine, we have plagues, we have whatever, right? All those doom and gloom sayers. It's like, but the longer we live, the more chances that all those other things can affect us. So
roofs
it ends up being
need to be replaced. Transmissions die. It's a real thing. And the further we go on as a society, John, the more longevity becomes an issue. I mean, we are living longer. We are taking better care of ourselves. Somebody said, I can't remember where it was, but I saw something where somebody was talking about how the expectation, the life expectation is going to quickly jump to well into the 100s over the course of the next few years because of AI technology and medication technology and the stem cell research. Well, the information that you do have, Sir Jon Hicks, not that you've been knighted. But
I was going to say, I don't recall being knighted.
I'll give you that brand
recently.
Today, Mr. Jon Hicks. The information about how we make our money work for us during these years, because a writer at GoBankingRates.com was doing a little experiment playing around with AI. The writer asked ChatGPT, hey, if I make $60,000 today, how much am I going to need 20 years from now for the same lifestyle? And the quick answer, ChatGPT said you're going to need $108,000. So, John, let's do the math. Everything is going to go up in 20 years by 80%, according to this quick exchange. If you do the research, the cost of butter, eggs, and a Ford F-150 back in 2005, you do the math on that, that 80% increase, it tracks, John. Meanwhile, people are suspect because a new study by Nationwide found that thanks to inflation, many older workers and retirees are skeptical of traditional withdrawal rules of thumb. Think the 4% rule, 100 minus your age rule. And so we're starting to think that these kinds of rules may no longer apply to our reality. How in the heck do we do this then? How do we figure out a withdrawal rate to factor in inflation and longevity so that we have money when we're older?
Yeah, so think about what the big issue here is at hand, right? We're living longer, so we're trying to figure out how much of my money can I actually pull out and live off of without running out, right? I mean, in study after study, and in all these questionings to all Americans, that's what everyone keeps saying. How am I going to make sure I don't run out of money? Because it's difficult, right? Because we are living so much longer. Originally, they said the 4% rule would be fine, which is the amount you start retiring on. You take up 4% and you adjust that for inflation each year. And what they're finding is when all this was done in the early 1990s, we weren't living as long. To me, it really has a lot less to do with withdrawal rates, and it has to do with behavior, how we behave. Believe it or not, market crashes are not the biggest enemy in retirement. It's our behavior when markets do whatever, or when interest rates do whatever, or whatever happens around us. And the way to eliminate that is not to focus on a withdrawal rate. It's to focus on how can we be certain that we have a bucket of money that's only goal, its only job is to give us income for a living, right? That's what it really comes down to. And back in the day, they called this a pension.
Right.
I know, it's like an ancient dinosaur, like a triceratops.
What is this pension you speak of? Tell us more.
Right. And if you look at it, we were talking earlier on another part of the show, we were talking about how I think that the new generations are really soft. And the truth is they want pensions back. They don't want to work forever. They don't want to have to figure it out. They want someone to force and hand it to them. And they want to be fed these things. Well, frankly, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
I would love to have that.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't love to have a pension? That is the closest thing to what we have in the United States is Social Security, right? Except we paid into that sucker. And we're going to potentially pay in forever, and we'll see how much we get back in the end.
Right.
But again, let's go back to the original thing at hand. When it comes down to withdrawal rates, I think that that's an archaic design that is doomed to fail, because you're always going to wonder, are these assumptions going to hold up during this 10 years? Or specifically during your retirement period. Okay. Because if you retire, let's say, Heather, at 62, and you live to be 95, that is 33 years. 33 years that you need that money to last and grow. So amazingly, if you do that same math we looked at earlier about what an Ford F-150 cost or what butter cost and things like that, if you go forward and expect that we're going to have just a 3% inflation rate, and in order for us to live, we need the inflation rate plus, let's say, 3 or 4%. Guys, that $100,000 that we need now to live off of will be over $224,000 at that point in time in our 90s.
Yeah.
That is crazy sauce if you think about it like that. And yet, history shows us and the statistics show us it is potentially very accurate. And that's with a lower inflation rate than we've seen in the last several years, right? And if you look at the cost of medication, drugs, you look at the cost of food, you look at the cost of housing, you look at the cost of gasoline, most all of those things have inflated substantially higher. And those are the things that most retirees are worried about. Those have inflated higher than standard inflation. So when you think about these things, our behavior is going to dictate it all. In our office, this is why we specifically utilize a system that we just call elegant simplicity. It's simple. It's 3 buckets. But by bucketing our money so that we know what do we need if things go right or wrong for the next 1 or 2 years, okay? Well, your comfort level will then dictate how much you put in that, but at least 1 to 2 years worth of income. Now we're good for 2 years. This middle bucket is the most important part because that middle bucket is the money that we need to create an income for us. Whether you own Airbnbs, you own rental properties, you own strip malls, you own equities, you own dividend paying things, you own annuities, you own insured contracts, you own whatever, doesn't matter. We need that to produce a spendable income for us. That's number one.
Okay.
The second thing we need it to do is to not lose money. When everyone talks about the Warren Buffett rules of investing, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1, right?
Yes.
And I agree with that in this, what we call the middle bucket, the income-based bucket. This is the one place that I think annuities, as much as they're given positive praise or they're demonized, this is the one place that if it's a proper fit, it could work. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands of other investments that fit in this bucket. But the main thing is, number 1, it has to produce income. And number 2, it can't lose our principal.
Okay.
But everything else goes in that third bucket. Now, when you look at something that can't lose principal, and let's just use current interest rates or even lower rent interest rates. If you just make 2% on that middle bucket and you pull out 6% a year, your money magically lasts for at least 25 years. Now, that is one of the most interesting things when you look at simple math, and that's why I like the elegant simplicity. We can go back and figure out a 6% withdrawal rate for our client, figure out what amount of money we need in that middle bucket, and what does that do? Frees up the entire rest of the portfolio to be invested in anything they want, whether it's AI technology companies or cryptocurrency or whatever. None of that matters to us. The main thing is we want their plan to work, and to stay retired is what everyone's freaking out about. How much can I withdraw? Let's don't think about how much you can withdraw. Let's establish a framework to know your income from day one until the day you kick off. Knowing that is tremendously important. Then what is that growth bucket built to do? That third bucket? To keep up with inflation. So we know our income is going to be satisfied, and we leave inflation to a different element. That is the easiest way to do it. And by the way, the chances of failure when we use a properly structured bucket plan are less than 2%. If you look at the normal 60-40 rules, if you invest 60% in stocks and 40% in bonds and only pull out 4%, there is a tremendous chance to actually run out of money, much more than 15% in the long run. So we want people to not focus on the things that give us that much chance of failure. We want to focus on single digits, preferably less than 5% chance of running out of money. That would be failure, right? So if we do it correctly, we don't have to worry about those general rules of thumb, because psychology is what's going to destroy us 10 times over whatever the market would actually throw at us.
If you have questions for Jon and his team about figuring out your own withdrawal strategy, we're here to help you get some answers. Give us a call, 502-317-0840, 502-317-0840. Call us right now. We've got a teammate standing by off the air ready to help you schedule a time on the calendar for your initial 15-minute phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is an easy, no obligation first step for you to ask some questions and get some answers. We can let you know how we can help at J. Hagan Capital, 502-317-0840, or visit us at retirementsolutionradio.com. I was thinking about how you were talking about bucketing strategies and figuring out what our withdrawal is going to be, because for a lot of people in a lot of circumstances, they might hear, oh my goodness, all these extra years. I'm going to have to save more. I have to work longer. I have to work harder. But what you're saying, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, with proper strategy, it's just about moving some of the furniture around in the room to create the income.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
Most people do not need to go to IKEA and get an entire new suite of furniture. All they need to do is to effectively position all of the furniture where it fits in the space comfortably at each phase of our lives. Most people think, oh, I got to get all different products and all different investments. Very rarely. All you need to do is to make sure that you've designed it to where you're comfortable for that room. That's all it really boils down to. And the good thing is that if we're being really smart when it comes to withdrawing money, the tax benefit that we get from a strategic tax strategy offsets a lot of the issues that people run into when it comes to withdrawal strategies. By doing proper tax planning along the way as part of an integrated part of retirement planning, we offset a lot of that inflation to begin with. That is the real ticket to winning.
I think also this is all boiled down to diversification just takes on a different meaning in retirement.
Without question.
Yeah.
So we don't just want to diversify our assets. We want to diversify asset location and timing elements of when we pull those assets out. Those make huge differences in the long run. AI is helping us figure some of these things out. No joke. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a properly structured plan in the front end where we've already had these conversations.
If you are wondering about diversification for retirement, you're smart, you worked hard, you have done proper diversification in your growth years, but it takes on a whole new meaning and figuring out a withdrawal strategy that's going to work for you with tax strategies and taking the emotion out of it. It does. It feels like a lot. It can feel overwhelming, but at J. Hagan Capital, we're here to help. You do not have to figure this all out by yourself. 502-317-0840 is the number to dial right now. A teammate standing by off the air, ready to answer your call and help you set a time on the calendar for an initial 15-minute phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is a no-fee, no obligation initial step where you can ask some of your questions, talk about what you're worried about, and then we'll explain how we can hopefully offer some guidance through this process. 502-317-0840. We're going to be here for a few extra minutes after the end of the program today to ensure we answer your call. You can also visit retirementsolutionradio.com or it's 502-317-0840. One thing I haven't asked you, and I'm surprised I haven't asked you this over the conversations that we've had here on the radio, because you and your wife, Tennille, have your two beautiful daughters. You have your sweet young family. How many times, because you talk a lot about their sports and all the things that you're doing there, travel, soccer, and coaching flag football and those kinds of things. But how much math homework have you had to help with over the years?
A ton.
Really?
It is unbelievable how much math, 5th grade and sophomore level calculus, that I end up doing on a weekly basis. Yeah. Every week. It's no joke.
It's different now than different. When you and I were learning it?
The high schooler, the algebra is pretty much similar.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do to algebra and geometry.
The way that they show the proofs is a little different, but not much. Okay. But the 5th grade math is another level of psycho sauce. It makes no sense to me. I think it is ridiculous. It's based on chunking and things like that. And I'm like, what are we talking about?
Is this the new math? Is that what this is?
It's terrible.
All right.
I don't know if it's new math. It's terrible math. You could probably find the way that I do most math at that level in the back of some 500-year-old Russian textbook.
Okay.
And it still works. It's like perfectly fine. Why no need to change? Right? That's the way I think.
Yeah.
And of course, then the little one gets all aggravated at me. Dad, you don't understand. The teacher doesn't like the way you do it. I'm like, the correct way? The way that gets the answer right every single time?
Lord,
you mean that one?
Break out your abacuses, everybody. Here's good news, John. The frustration, you are not alone in your feelings. Nate Bargatze, listen, unless you've had your head stuck in the sand under a rock, you know who Nate Bargatze is.
He's got a good agent.
He's out there. In case you're like, why do I know this name? He's the guy that did that Saturday Night Live sketch with George Washington and coming up with the initial.
Going across the Delaware. Yes, that was great.
Yes, that's kind of what he's really brought him onto the scene. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's got a young daughter. I think she's 12 or 13. And he was talking about helping her with her homework and how he has been thrown for a loop with this new math stuff. This is Nate Bargatze.
If you don't know Common Core math, it's just basically a long way to get to the same answer. And even when you break it down, you see old math sneak in there. I mean, You're like, that was old math right there. Just do that at the beginning. I told my wife, it's a long way to get to the same thing. It would be if you came to my house and you knocked on the front door and you're like, can I come in? And I was like, could you walk around and come in through the back door? And you would be like, does the front door not work? And it's like, it works. It works fine. I use it. Most people still use it. But the new way is to go jump the fence, come in the back, and then meet me back here.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly it.
Very real feeling.
Bart has to get that exactly right. And the craziest thing is he's talking about, math, just like I do, math with, our middle schooler, right? The craziest thing is, though, Heather, when people get closer to retirement, all of the
Same
thoughts
feelings
that they had about their math, all of a sudden retirement becomes new math to them. They can't believe it. It's crazy to them. It's like, hold on, maybe, John, but I've been putting my money in these accounts and it's been growing. And I've been doing that every year. And every paycheck. It's great. Hold on now. Why are you changing all the math on me? Now you're talking about like Social Security claiming strategies and required minimum distribution and taxes and inflation.
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
And I'm living, I'm going to live longer. And hold on. I thought this was a simple addition or subtraction problem. And you're giving me advanced calculus, dude. What are you talking about? And the crazy thing is that unlike Bargatze's comment where, hey, all that old math, it still works. Yeah. When it comes to distribution economics, which is essentially what we're talking about, it's actually different math. Yeah. It's new to us if we're just now getting close to retirement, that distribution math works very differently. It works unbelievably differently. And that's the biggest thing that most people have to understand is that when we get to retirement, it's not just new. It's completely different. And if we understand that our mind just has to get around that paradigm shift that we have to make, it's like, okay, growing money was great. And I've got all this big pile of money now. How do I protect it and hold on to it? Number one. How do I produce an income so I can live without having to sell all this stuff? That's number two. And number three, how do I keep it in my pocket where I can spend it and not give it all to government so that they can waste it, right? Those are the big three things. And that's where it gets a little bit different. And that's why our office has taken the entire point of not being financial advisors. We're retirement planners. Right. We want to specifically get someone to the point where they can retire and then have an absolutely awesome retirement doing the stuff they want to do. Mathematically, we know it's going to work for them. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And to your point, it's a whole new territory. It's a whole new category. If you are getting close to retirement, if you're 5 to 10 years out, if you're starting to feel those feelings that you felt in elementary school and middle school about the nerves, I don't know about you. I remember crying over long division trying to figure it out when I was a kid. And for so many of us, those emotions, they creep back in because we are just very overwhelmed. At J. Hagan Capital, they are helping folks figure out this new kind of distribution economics, this new kind of math for retirement. We can help you as well. 502-317-0840. Give us a call. Let's put a time on the calendar for your initial 15-minute phone conversation with one of our advisors. 502-317-0840 or retirementsolutionradio.com. All right, so let's talk about how we make sense out of this quote unquote new math for retirement. This just distribution. I really like this phrase, distribution economics, because for our whole working life, John, it was save, it was grow. And
it was accumulate.
Now, one day we retire and suddenly we're just supposed to know how to spend and distribute. No problem. That's where it's unfair.
Yeah, it's different. So from that point in time, all the way up until the time that we're deciding that, hey, we're going to quit working and we're going to let our money work for us. Yeah. We've been accumulating. That's accumulation mode. That's great. And that's what we've been taught. By the way, this is where 95% of all the commercials all over the television, look how great our funds do. We beat our Lipper peer group average, blah, 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 blah. That's all based on accumulation. Yeah. When we get to the point to where it's time to distribute, when we say, okay, now that I'm at the top of the mountain, now I want to make sure that I can get down this mountain without falling, twisting my ankle, rolling all the way down and ending up in a puddle on the ground. I want to enjoy this ride down, right? Yeah. We would rather take the gondola. That's perfectly controlled. It's climate controlled. We have a very comfortable, cushy seat. Yeah, someone's in there giving us hot cocoa, and maybe some fresh croissants. That's the way we want to get down the mountain. Yes. We don't want to have some stupid Sherpa who's wearing, some from head to toe Patagonia neoprene suit going, okay, listen, we could die right here. So make sure you watch your step. That sounds horrible. That sounds worse than horrible. So to me, I want the gondola ride with the hot cocoa. So the objective is to understand it's a different trek than to get up the mountain. So number one, here's what we have to understand. All of us have to understand.
Okay.
If you're retiring in your early 60s, let's say 62, and you're married, there's a chance that between you or your spouse, one of you will get close to living to 100. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. That means that's 40 years, 4 decades. Now, think about that and then compare that to how many years did you actually work? If you started working when you were, let's say, 20, and then you're going to retire at 60-something, you only spent 40 years working, and now you hopefully saved enough to have 40 years of savings to live the next 40? Ooh. So when we just put that in perspective for a quick sec, it's like,
makes you nervous.
Maybe we need to make sure, number one, we don't lose all this, right? So protection becomes very important. Longevity, the longer we live, the more all those other things that could affect us or potentially harm us, they all still come around, but they have longer to do it. Okay. So the first thing to understand is that longevity is one of the big culprits. Now, how can we defeat some of that? Well, we need to make sure our income sources are really clean. Social Security is the first one. Okay. So when we look at the new math, quote unquote, of Social Security, over the last several years, you've been reading all the things, seeing all the things, hearing all the things. Social Security does not have enough money. It's going to run out. Well, probably not. But here's what's going to happen. They may reduce our benefits in the future. We've already seen guidance coming actually from the government saying people could potentially see up to a 20% reduction of their Social Security. Now, I don't want to get too focused on that because who knows what's going to happen. Okay. That could still not happen. But the main thing is there's only 1 or 2 great strategies still remaining for Social Security claiming. One of them involves a couple. It used to be you could file and suspend, and that was a way to game the system and make a ton of money. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. We can't do that. But what we can do is what we in the office call the 6270 rule. Okay. Now, this is where we potentially have one of the spouses file for Social Security earlier, the one that would get a smaller check. Yeah. So, and you do that as early as age 62. Now, why would you do that? Because you're going to have money coming in consistently from 62 all the way until the time you're gone. For the average bear, that means you're going to have more money in your pocket all the way up until around age 78 to 79. That's not bad. Right. No, at the same time, we have the larger person, the person that would have the larger amount of money, we have them wait and file at age 70. Now, why do we do that? Well, now that is going to be the biggest bucket because every year that we wait, we're compounding that at 8% guaranteed by the government. And what happens if the person that has the smaller bucket passes away? It doesn't matter which one. The survivor gets the biggest bucket of money, and we let that grow to the max. So by doing that, that is a way to use quote unquote new math of the Social Security system that we can still potentially do, right? Now, it doesn't work out in everyone's situation. It's not just a rule of thumb. You want to do the math on it, but we've seen that can actually add quite a bit of long-term money to a client's portfolio that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to do if they just selected the earliest or at full retirement age, right? Taxes are a major consideration. So when it comes down to selecting that Social Security, that is the biggest part about tax integration. So very differently than we were accumulating, going up that mountain. When we start to distribute, we're going to be pulling money out of accounts that have not had any taxation up to that point in time. Now, when we do that, it is a very different feel. Because now the money's coming out, we're potentially eroding some of that account value and we're being taxed on it. That is one of the biggest ways that a skilled fiduciary can fix that. In our office, we have CPAs and tax attorneys specifically, so that when we pull that money out, we can use more of it than the other group. And this is very different than the accumulation phase. The distribution phase, we are so much more important on how we pull that money out and from what account and at what years. Okay. So this is something that's dynamic. It's always changing. It's not a rule of thumb. It's what is going to be best for that client in that tax filing year to put them ahead of the game. Those 3 big pieces are how the new math has changed, but really it's the paradigm of thinking. It's just different math. And if you don't have the answers to those equations, that's where you really need to focus on dealing with a skilled fiduciary advisor like at J. Hagan Capital.
Let's start that conversation. Give us a call at 502-317-0840, 502-317-0840. We've got a teammate standing by off the air, ready to answer your call and help you set a time on the calendar for an initial 15-minute phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is a no-fee, no obligation, initial first step in the planning process. and want to offer that to you again on a complimentary basis. 502-317-0840 if you have questions about this distribution economics, knowing how to spend your money with confidence in retirement. This is what Jon and his team want to show you the how-tos of this kind of plan. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is also our website and where you can go to, again, begin that conversation or give us a call. Let's put a time on the calendar for your 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors. 502-317-0840. So George Carlin, one of the greatest comedians, according to almost anybody you ask, he actually, I hadn't heard this. He did a whole bit about stuff and a place for my stuff. This is just a snippet of George Carlin.
That's the whole meaning of life, isn't it? Trying to find a place for your stuff. It's all your house is. It's a place to keep your stuff while you go out and get more stuff. Now, sometimes you've got to move. You got to get a bigger house. Why? Too much stuff.
Jon, tip, go and look up the whole bit because it's so great. It is so relatable and makes you laugh so hard, even all these years later.
There's so much truth to that, too. I mean, I remember the last couple moves we did, you know, we couldn't get all of our stuff, you know, in the pod and in the truck. So we had like a storage unit and we ended up spending, this is the no joke, we ended up spending, I don't know, a couple $100 a month for a storage unit for like 4 or 5 months. So we ended up spending over $1,000. When we actually opened that thing up and looked at everything in there, there is no way that all that stuff combined was even worth $250.
Right.
Why, though? Did we feel like we needed to keep it?
Well, that dresser belonged to my great-grandmother, and I remember when she used to sit there and spit her tobacco in the spittoon.
I mean, it was just the most nonsensical crap ever, and talk about a waste of money, but it's so true.
And we will hang on to things, not just in the physical sense, Jon. We got a problem with stuff when it comes to our money.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about the clutter that so often bogs down our portfolio and, by way, our retirement planning. If somebody wants to organize their savings, if somebody is ready to unpack it, clean it out, and build a clear, actionable retirement plan, where do we even start? Because that's usually the hardest part.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, most people's idea of retirement planning, it looks a little bit like a junk drawer in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. Don't get me wrong. But there's also keys that you don't remember what they'll go to. Coupons that expired like 17 years ago and some mysterious little remote that we have no idea what it turns on or
but
off.
You're afraid to throw it away.
We don't even know if it came from this house. Right. We don't even know. But here's what most of the pros know, that real retirement planning starts with clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity. Yeah. No joke. So it doesn't start with spreadsheets, not calculators, literally clarity. So what do I mean? Well, picture your dream retirement. You know, is it hitting the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, or teaching the grandkids how to fish, or starting a garden, maybe touring the world in an RV? The whole thing is, if you can visualize it, then you can plan for it. And if you can't, well, it's never going to feel right. So here's step number one. And you're going to want to write down to you. I don't mean just think about it. You need to write down what a great retirement looks like for you, period. Bar number one. So you got to paint the big picture. Now, once you've got the picture down and you know, hey, are you going to go RVing? Are you going to snowbird in Florida or Texas or whatever you want to do, or the British Virgin Islands? Once you get that down, then you're going to need to take inventory. And this is what we're just talking about moving, right? Yeah. You got to actually look at everything you have. So you want to count your dollars, and here's a big one, in your debts, right? Because this is a big one. Because if we think and we do this mental accounting, and there's all kinds of studies that talk about this. Yeah. When you do mental accounting, unfortunately, it's not very accurate. We think, oh, well, you know, I've got about $800,000 saved, or 2.9 million, whatever it is, and I don't have any debts. Is that true? Or do we really have that car loan that we still got going on, right? And we are helping the grandkids out or the kids out with some things, and we know that that's going to have, you know, some more cost to it. We want to make sure that we're actually counting it up. Okay. And that's kind of when we have to get our hands dirty, because when we take inventory, that's kind of that idea. But when we move, we need to kind of clean things out, right? There's a lot of stuff that we just need to think about tossing, right? And when we look at that cleaning, we got to look at all those things, not only our checking accounts and savings accounts, but our 401ks and IRAs too, because many times people have junk in there that they don't even know what it's for. I mean, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, I will ask a client when they come in, hey, so you got all this stuff, and frankly, I don't see anything that's terrible. what do you have this stuff for? I'm like, man, I don't know. It's like, well, how long have you had it? I don't know. I was hoping you'd be telling me that.
This is what you need to tell me.
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, from what I can tell, it looks like you've held it for a long time. Do you remember what it was for? And guys, this happens all the time, right? So people that owned energy funds that have gotten the snot kicked out of them in the last couple of years, or people that own gold. Well, gold had a big run. Did you ever trim some of those positions? Or people that have had bonds, unfortunately, since 2022, and they have absolutely just gotten clobbered on those things. And the whole question is why did they even own the bonds in the first place? Was it for diversification? Okay, well, that's a fine reason to own something different. But do we want to own something that also can lose us money? Because bonds can do that. So the question is, why do we have that stuff, and does it still fit your current needs? Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But when we go through that inventory, we're going to want to clear some of that clutter out. Just kind of like that Letterman jacket that's got moth, eating holes in it. It's just time for it to go.
This is what you're doing in a second opinion review process, right? At J. Hagan Capital, people come to you, they bring you stuff, you review it. The biggest thing is when
someone comes in, it's like, how did you get that strategy?
Yeah.
Are you a value-oriented person? Are you growth-oriented? Do you like technology stocks? Are you tactical? Do you want to be a little bit more protective on the downside? Do you want to create a bigger income? All of those questions relate to completely different investment strategies. Okay. None of them are better than the others, but some of them may be better for you. Okay. They can keep you on board because there's not so much roller coaster rides, or they produce more income, so you're more confident. But that's what we got to figure out, right? And not all assets belong to everyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a guy that came in the other day, and he had, I'm not going to lie, a large percentage in cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge crypto guy. Am I against it? No, but I don't see a real reason other than historically it's gone up, in the whopping several years has been around. Mm-hmm. And I just asked him, I was like, hey, you've done really well on this. What are your thoughts? And his whole point was, well, I guess it hasn't let me down now. Up until now, why wouldn't I hold on to it? Well, that's perfectly fine. But the question was, does he want to hedge that position? Does he want to put a stop loss on there? So if it starts falling off a cliff, he can at least hold on and harvest some of those gains, right? But we have to ask those questions because some people are like, they're looking for an answer. John, what do you think? It's like, I personally don't think that crypto should be a large part of a retirement portfolio. Having said that, to own 5 or 7% of your portfolio in that is perfectly acceptable. The question is, do you understand at this point if it's a good asset for you to own or not? Mm-hmm. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? So that's one of those things that we're always looking at. Just, hey, why do you own this? And is there still a good reason for it? Because many of the things that get us near that finish line for retirement, they're not the things that we want. To be honest with you, they're not the things we want to have to harvest and produce income in retirement.
Okay.
Doesn't make them bad.
Right.
They're just not going to be as efficient for us to own, once we retire.
Different phases of life, different needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we typically want the things that have a little bit more risk that can grow when we're younger, right? We want that whole thing to snowball and get to hopefully this big old pile of money. But once we get that big old pile of money, we really want it to turn into kind of like an ATM. Where to start spending, sending us money every single month when we need it, and we don't have to think about it, right? It almost replaces our working paycheck with a retirement play check, if you will, just because the way that their strategy works.
Okay.
And people like that, right? And there's not one product specific design. It's just a process that we always go through. So once you have that inventory, then the real thing is you have to get real about defining your goals. Where do you want to live in retirement? Do you want to relocate? Do you want to downsize? Let's be honest. If your home has lots of stairs, there becomes an age, and I can attest to this. My mother's 76 years old. Mm-hmm. She went to a ranch style house because, oh my gosh, hips don't feel as good. Ankles don't feel as good. Knees don't feel as good. And had she been in something like her previous house that had an upstairs and a basement, guys, there's just no way. And you don't want to be stuck in that and not be able to sell it for what you would like to get out of it at the wrong time. Right. So, homes are a big deal. What fixed expenses are you going to have, right? We know that healthcare is going to have a cost. Are we factoring that in? What about the inflation on those types of things? So once we define those goals, then we build the blueprint, right? Okay. But think about it. All of this starts off with just being honest with ourselves. What do we want to accomplish? What do we currently have? And does it fit what we want to do next? Because sometimes, again, like I said, it all starts with clarity. And sometimes you got to get rid of that junk drawer. You got to get rid of those keys that you don't know what they go to, the remote that doesn't work, so that you can actually see clearly about what you want to accomplish.
RetirementSolutionShow.com is our website and where to go to start the conversation with Jon and his team at J. Hagan Capital about building that kind of plan, one that evolves, one that's flexible, one that you can stick with. It seems like that might be a big ask, but at J. Hagan Capital, they are here to simplify the process with and for you. Starting that conversation on our website, we have links that you can click on, posted in the show notes, or again, visit us anytime, RetirementSolutionShow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.